Good morning, guys. So today is a special video. I'll be talking about my daily routine when I'm preparing for my chess. So every day when I wake up and do my normal morning routine, at some point I do sit down and do my chess practice. And so I'm gonna show you what that looks like. And typically after I eat breakfast, I do Duolingo for a few minutes. And here's my stats. Here's the current time as well too. So right now I'm at 340-day streak, which is not that impressive. I mean, there are people out there who have thousands of days of, continuous use on Duolingo. So, but I do want to show you that I do this a few minutes per day. I'm not trying to become a fluent Spanish speaker. I just think it's important to be at least knowledgeable in a different language. It just helps with the old brain cells right here, of course, and whatnot. So there's a screenshot right there, of course. So once I do Duolingo for a few minutes, I then come to chess.com. Now, typically I don't do it on my laptop. I do it on my phone. So literally I might sit at my kitchen table for maybe a few more minutes and just do Duolingo and then do this afterwards. And what I'm doing is a couple of puzzles. Puzzles, for those who don't do this every single day, it's kind of like a warm up you do. So if you're an athlete or any professional, every day you show up to, meet a certain standard or a certain criteria. And so I like to make sure that I can at least spot and properly execute on different tactics I might see in my real games. And the idea is that when you're playing a real game, you should be mindful about how do you properly search for and find winning ideas, and how do you double check your work to make sure that you're not missing something obvious, like a way your opponent could defend and stuff like that. And each puzzle, it could be the daily puzzle, whatever, has a different thing that might trip you up. So it is important to be able to do all this in your mind without moving the pieces, which you'll see right now. So literally just logged on, and I didn't really check out the daily puzzle yet, so you'll see me do this in the real time. Now, the daily puzzles, they do get gradually harder throughout the week. And on Sundays, typically I see that's like the hardest one. But sometimes the ones on Fridays or Thursdays might be particularly hard as well, too. And I try not to look at the title as well. So when I do it on my phone, I like to hide the title of the puzzle. I'm just going to use my webcam as a way to hide that so I don't have to look at to my right hand side right here. Right, it's black to move. And when I'm looking at puzzles like this, you might be thinking to yourself, well, how do I know what to do? It seems like a random jumble of pieces. Well, it's always important to remember in any puzzle, you're trying to reach a winning position. And so that means you're trying to look for ways to attack or capture, enemy pieces or the king. So typically, when you're trying to think through what you should be doing, you should always start with a forcing moves first, as a lot of grandmasters and books have shared. Forcing moves are things that your opponent cannot ignore when you make these kinds of moves. These include checks, captures, threats, and sacrifices. And that last bit has come from a mentor of mine, so I'm not gonna. Yeah, well, you get the point. So anyway, um, in this situation though, it's important to kind of start there and then start thinking more broadly from there about the other tactical and ideas from there as well. In this situation, I can count one, two, three, four, five different checks in this position. So queen g2, queen h2, queen takes on f3, queen takes on g1. So I guess I should count this out. So one, two, three, four. Queen h4. So those are checks that I can see in this position right here. Now, the first one that comes to mind is Queen h4 because the king in that situation only has one legal move. Notice how the other checks that I mentioned lead to the queen being lost. And once the queen's lost in some kind of way, white has a overwhelming position right here. And it's important to note as well, too, before you even get started calculating that you got to think about, well, what do I want to achieve if I do play, let's just say, Queen H4? It's not going to be to win a piece because, as you can see right here, Black is down a lot of material. They're down a rook and a knight in this situation. And so just winning a rook isn't going to help us to uh, win this position right here, seeing as white has all this activity and whatnot. So we do want to go for checkmate right here, guys, especially since our queen and bishop are so close to the king that there must be some kind of checkmate pattern that we need to think of. So if you want to pause for a second and think of this yourself, think about if we do play king h4, what's white's response and how do we follow up the attack from there? All right, hope you guys thought about that enough. So queen h4, you should have said in this situation, king to g2 is the only legal move. And how do you know that a certain sequence of moves is going to lead to a winning attack? Well, if you give a check, you have to be able to follow up with another check or some other forcing move as well. And like one of my mentors say, it's your responsibility as a good chess player to exhaust every possible forcing move until there's none left, and then judge if that position is worth pursuing. So let's do that right now. Queen h4 check, king g2, bishop h3 check, and the king's forced to go back to the h file. Notice how you cannot go to f2 because the queen already controls that square. And if you don't see that, I'll show you guys in 1 second if you can't visualize all that in your mind. And after the king goes back to either h2 or h1, we're going to move our bishop and deliver a discover check. Now, it does matter where the bishop goes, and the only square that makes sense is going to be bishop to f1. Bishop f1 discover check allows the bishop to control the g2 square, and that's going to lead to checkmate because in that situation, the king cannot run away, and there's no way for black to, you know, stop the queen check on h4 from that point. So let's go ahead and play the moves real quick. So check. Oops. About the mouse slip. That would have been embarrassing. And then there you go. So I have a chess.com diamond membership, so I can actually watch the the little video right here, but I'm not gonna do that right now, I don't think. Or will I? I'm not sure if you guys will be able to hear the sound or not. I'm gonna try it real quick. But as you can see right here, I have been doing this entire month so far. Last month, as you can see, I've been out of town for a couple of reasons, and so some days, as you can see, I didn't do my daily puzzle, but I've been doing this, guys, for a while now, going back in time right here. So it is something I do every single day as best as I can. So there you go. Let's see if we can watch this real quick.
Black to play here as white's king is rather
I
weak,
mean, I
but
can
how
hear it, but
can
I'm not sure
black
you guys can hear
actually
it.
win the game? Well, the right first move is to start with queen h4 check, the only safe check in the position. White is forced to play king to g2, and now the critical move is bishop h3 check, involving the bishop into the attack. Queen h3 check doesn't quite work here because then white can run with the king, king f2, queen h4 check, for example, rook to g3. White starts covering up with their pieces, and white has a big material advantage, full extra rook and extra knight in the positions.
Yeah, and that's a good point he just made, which is being able to, in chess, and I kind of took this for granted because I knew that was going to be the winning attack, but in chess, you got to be able to not only spot the best move, but also to discount a bad move. And it's really hard to do that when you're so convinced. Like, I have had positions where I'm like, this looks like the right idea. But sometimes in chess, you have to be able to prove yourself wrong to the point where you can't do so. And so, if you're finding yourself missing these kinds of problems right here, you have to be your worst critic in a way and force yourself to think, all right, if I want to make this work, well, how can my opponent, fight back against me in the best possible way? So there you go.
So once black's attack runs out here, it's going to be game over. So after king to g2, black has to be very precise. Bishop h3 check is the kill shot. The king is not able to escape over to the queen side or the center of
I
the
did
board.
mention that as
Has
well.
to go back to the h file, and now bishop f1, a very, very nice checkmate to end the game. Notice that the bishop is opening up the queen to check the king and covering the key escape square g2, so white's king is completely mated.
There you go. So after I do a daily puzzle, guys, then I go over to a normal puzzle on chess.com. I like to do at least one per day to kind of, again, test those knowledge right here. And so I am going to try and solve this in real time right here. I'm not going to try and talk about this too much. In this situation, it's black to move, and I can clearly see that this is going to be some kind of checkmate pattern. And it's going to involve most likely some kind of rook sacrifice because notice how the queen is on f3, and we have our two rooks on the half open files G and F files right there. And also, guys, notice in this situation that if we don't checkmate black, again, it's really important when you're trying to see, hey, what should I do before you make a move? You got to think about what your opponent's able to do as well. In that last position, our opponent had a lot of extra material, so you had to be careful not just to look for trades. Here, white does have a check mini threat on b7 right here. Queen b7 is checkmate. And so we want to be mindful about those kinds of things right there. So in this situation, our first move is going to be a forcing move. Again, I could count all the checks, but the one that kind of screams out to me the most is rook takes on g4 check. I should let you guys I should have paused and let you guys think about the solution. So how about this? After rook takes on g4, and most likely pawn, well, not most likely because white only has two responses in that situation. But after white responds, try to think of black's continuation from there. Right? So rook takes on g4. And this is one thing in chess you have to get good at, which is be able to properly assess and calculate two different lines and keep both of them in your mind as you're trying to decide if this is the right move to make right here. So rook takes on g4. There's two ways that white can defend. They can't run their king because all the squares around the king is covered by the black pieces, the bishop on c7 and the queen on f3. So after rook takes on g4, pawn takes on g4 and knight blocks on g3 are the two possible moves. So if, well, the first one's kind of obvious. If pawn takes on g4, so let's say the pawn takes our rook. Well, no, sorry. Let me go back for a sec. The obvious one's going to be if rook takes on g4. If the knight blocks, we could just take the knight with our rook. And after pawn takes on g3, queen takes on g3, king to the corner, and then queen h2 is checkmate. That's one possible line, but that's really easy. So rook takes on g4. They could try pawn takes on g4, and then we have to find a way to give the king another check right here. So queen takes on g4 looks kind of obvious, but after uh, knight blocks on g3, we do have a small problem, which is in that situation, if we take the knight with our bishop, we get checkmate on b7 because we don't have enough time to move our bishop and to save our pieces right there. And actually, I think I might see a better idea right here, folks. But I'll get to that in 1 second. Uh, so rook takes on g4. So I think if pawn, well, how should I put this? When I play rook takes on g4, I did spot another check right here we can give, which is going to be bishop h2, which will come into handy in a little bit, I think. So rook takes on g4. Let's just go down the lines. So if pawn takes, I think we have to play in that situation. Yeah, I think pawn takes is going to be the critical line because if knight blocks, then like I just said, we just take the rook takes on g3, be good to go. But if rook takes on g4 and pawn takes on g4, so they take our rook, we have to play in that situation bishop h2 check. The king, the white king will be forced to take on h2, and then our second rook will slide over to the h file, rook h8, and that's going to be almost checkmate. Queen on h6 has to block, and then rook takes on h6 will be checkmate from that position. So again, I'm running you guys through the possible solutions, and then we'll look at that together before we do our other stuff as well. And typically with chess.com puzzles, you get a little bonus if you can solve these quickly. But I think it's way more important to be able to solve these completely. And I know I'm kind of like rambling a little bit and like I'm trying to show you guys my thought process and how, like, in one way, the way I think, I tend to jump around to different ideas without giving one idea its full diligence. And that could be one of my drawbacks as a chess player is I tend to like, oh, this looks good, but then again, this looks good as well, and not giving one idea its full course, if you will. Um, but like I said, it's not about solving these puzzles quickly. It's about solving these puzzles completely. That means be able to see every possibility that your opponent can play, so that way you're not surprised by anything they can do to you. All right, so rook takes on g4. We already looked at if knight blocks on g3. That's kind of simple. So the more critical line is if pawn takes on g4, we play bishop h2 check. It forces the king out of the corner. We play rook to h8, queen blocks at h6, and then rook takes on h6 is going to be checkmate. Now you might be wondering, why don't we just start with um, bishop h2 first. Well, if we start with that move and king takes on h2, notice that in that position we don't have any good checks to give the king, and we're hoping that when the pawn takes on g4, it does open the h file. That's really important when we're trying to calculate out this line right here. Otherwise, the king can sit on h2 for a move and be safe enough until our king gets checkmated on b7. All right, let's see it then real quick. All right, so the critical line, of course, now this move right here, of course, boom, and then boom. This was rated 2600 right here. What are the comments real quick? No comments. All right, cool. So I wonder if I want to leave a comment. I will. So if you guys ever on chess.com and you see like this position right here and you're like, hey, that looks like what Coach Morton did in that one video. Well, here you go. So an important takeaway when solving these. I want to see this like a checkmate. What checkmate? How many moves? Whatever. Solving these multi-step. I'm gonna say multi-step checkmates is better to practice. There you go. I had to move my webcam out the way. It's better to practice seeing the full solution rather than solving the problem quickly. This process will help you see the most improvement in your board visualization and calculation. And I'll put this as well. Comment below how you approach chess puzzles and what do you prioritize when solving them. For me, it's being able to anticipate all of my opponent's responses so I am never caught unprepared and I am able, therefore, to prepare my best attack. There you go. All right, folks. So I'll put that right there as a little a nod right there, of course. I need to get my puzzle rate back above 3,000, but that's besides the point. All right, so here's the second half of my training. So again, I do Duolingo for a few minutes. You might be saying to yourself, Coach Moore, you've been talking for like 20 or something minutes or whatever, right? I've been talking for how long, guys? Um, Where's the seat? It usually shows me a timer how long I've been talking for when I do these kinds of recordings, but I can't find it right now. But it feels like 20 something minutes right now. I know, but hey, I have to show you guys the meat and potatoes right here, for lack of a better word. After I get done the daily puzzle and doing at least one problem, I come over here now to Chessable, and I do some courses on here as well. Um, there's a lot of free ones online, so if you want to get a taste and kind of experiment with different training ideas and whatnot, then definitely make an account and just do a lot of the free ones. And if you want to buy one at some point, then knock yourselves out of course. But for right now, well, I gotta remember. So I'm not sure if you have a free Chessable course, sorry, account, if you could be able to access the free courses because you have to pay for your membership. But I'm not sponsored by Chessable, so I'm not gonna show you guys that right there. I am gonna show you guys though some of the more advanced problems I have been doing. Now, of course, one thing I like about Chessable is that they do correlate. I hope I said that right. But they do take the tactics you miss in your games and they put them right here. As you can see, I'm gonna do a couple of these real quick because it will humble me. Because all this is great until you actually have to do this in a real game. This is back in 2023. That's a while ago. All right, in this situation, it's black to move. I see that we can play knight takes on c2 to win a pawn and attack the rook. And then we can bring the knight back to b4 to attack the other rook if necessary. But maybe there's something more forcing right here, folks. We could play in this situation pawn to c4 immediately to attack the rook. Pawn takes on c4, so b takes on c4. Uh, Pawn takes on c4 is going to lead us to lose our rook on e3. So not our rook, but our knight. So we're not going to make that kind of mistake, I don't think. If we do play pawn c4 and pawn takes on b4, sorry, if we play pawn c4 and b takes on c4, then the pawn on a4 is a little bit weaker. But again, how can we take advantage of that? It's really hard to say, to be honest. We could play in this situation rook d to b8 to attack the knight that's on b5. If the knight doesn't move, then we do have a tactic of rook takes knight because if and I also just broke my own rule, which is which is I need to before I start calculating out all these different lines. I gotta remember that it's not just what I think; it's also what my opponent's doing as well. And this is something again that every chess player I feel like when they're trying to improve, they make this mistake. They only think about what they can do and not what their opponent can do. I forgot to see that the rook on d3 is attacking our knight that's unprotected, so we have to move that knight somewhere. So that's how a lot of people get in trouble because they think, oh, this is what I can do, I can do, and stuff. So real quick, guys, all right. So knight takes on c2, I think is going to be force or some kind of move that's going to save our knight from certain demise. We could play pawn d4 to protect the knight, but again, if the computer chose this particular position, there must be something more we can play right here and stuff. So let's let's try to see. So knight takes on c2. If we do take the pawn on c2, we'll be up a pawn in that situation. And that can't be all bad, of course. So me, that's gonna be our first move. And the problem is gonna be for me is gonna be to anticipate what my opponent would do after we attack their rook. They might attack our knight. So they might play rook to c1 to attack our knight. And then we're gonna have to put our knight on a safe square. Again, b4 looks like a pretty safe square for our knight. And I think we have successfully gained a pawn in that position. It's still a lot of work to be done. I mean, it's not like it's like crushing that we win a pawn right there, but maybe in this situation I didn't play that move and play something else. We're about to find out, guys. All right, so that was right, and I did anticipate rook to c1. Look at that, guys. Ballin. Gosh. So I guess I should just play my next move, but I'm just trying to double check real quick before I do. And that's the thing too, as much as you want to practice your calculation ability, it's always important to double check that hey, what you saw in your mind is actually gonna come true on the real board. And I think playing knight to d4, it looks tempting because you are trying to threaten knight e2 check, which is going to fork the king and the rook on those two squares. But I don't think it's going to be worth our time, guys. So let's just go back to this square and call it goods. Knight b4, let's go. Yeah, in the game I played d4 and I missed a chance to win a pawn right there. So here's the line. Well, this is what happened in the real game. So I did play pawn at d4 right here. And most likely it's because you're just thinking, hey, they're attacking our knight. But in this situation, it was better to take the pawn right here, of course. All right, so we're doing 3 for 3. Normally, guys, when I do these kinds of sessions, I sometimes get these wrong. So let's give ourselves our hardest problem to date. Okay, so prepare yourselves for some headaches real quick. All right, so tactics I miss. I want to do at least the last one I tend to do. This right here is more for my coaching than for myself. I already read through this whole book right here. I got the book over there. I wanted to try out the chessbook course just to see if it's worth recommending to my students. It's okay, but I don't think it's really all that great, the online version, because one thing, guys, about these kinds of problems, I'm gonna do one real quick just for illustration purposes. Yeah, the one thing about these kinds of problems is that you're tempted to just make a move because, as you can see, there's a timer right here. But it's really important, again, like I said, for my first problem, not to pay attention to how long it takes you to find the solution, but how complete your answer is. That is going to be the main determining factor right here, folks. And by the way, it's going to work here, if you were wondering. Yeah, so I mean, I feel like when you see chess online, the only thing that people care about is how fast you find the tactics and stuff like that. But it's more important that you're able to see the complete answer, what your opponent can do, what you can do, and that kind of stuff. So you don't miss anything in real games. That's what's really going to be important because typically in real games, people play too fast and they get in trouble because of that. We're going to do, guys, the visualization. Before I look at it real quick, I'll show you guys the description real quick. I got this course a few months ago because, like I was saying, one of the things I want to work on is my ability to accurately assess position without making any moves. And I just realized I got 13 minutes before I got to do my chess lesson. I got a chess lesson at 11 o'clock, guys. So I got to rock and roll here. So, but hope you guys find this all insightful and stuff like that. So, hope you guys don't mind the longer format from this video right here. But it is what it is, guys. And someone's calling me. We're not going to pick this up right now. Sorry, person. I can't do neither of those substitute opportunities right there. Yeah, so this is a course right here, Visualize 2 by Benediktine. I think this is how you pronounce their name or his name, whatever. Blah, 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 blah. Stretch, challenge, and boost your visualization power. Yep. And for me, especially, defense is really important, making sure I don't mess up and get in trouble, of course. And yeah, do you correct, of course. Yeah, and the main thing, guys, if you're someone who does play chess and know about tactics, it's more about your ability to follow a series of moves and then be able to see a tactic or be able to avoid a tactic being played against you. Those are the things I think that players need to work on is that ability to see the future and that kind of stuff. And the red herring positions, they look dangerous, but they actually are good for you. Surprisingly enough. Here's your instructions. Do not move the pieces. visualize some moves in your head, fix the position, then try and solve the puzzle. This course is designed to be complete over months, or so yeah, we'll say that my ability to act well, it's getting better. I'm not gonna say it's perfect, but we'll see if I can not embarrass myself right now in the next 11 or so minutes. All right. So this is a little bit different, guys, than my other puzzles I showed you. So you're going to have to be able to pause the video and in your mind visualize these moves right here. Now, if you're unable to read these moves, then you have to just follow along as I kind of read out loud for a second and then pause the video and then try and choose between these things right here that the computer wants you to think about. So this is the actual question right here, but you had to first visualize these first few moves right here. So visualize the moves. Rook takes on e4, which I gotta find. Oh yeah. So basically, rook takes on e4 is rook takes knight. By the way, so the rook on e1 is going to take the knight on e4 right here. Just so you know, rook takes on e4, c2. So black's trying to push their past pawn. Knight takes on c2. Rook takes on c2. h4. So white played h4 because of back rank weaknesses. Rook c1 check. King h2, and then queen c7. So the queen's attacking a rook on a6 now when they play to c7. And here's now your choices between rook b5 as d5 check is not a threat due to rook f4, or rook a6 putting pressure on the a5 pawn even though it's covered at the present. So basically, guys, once we reach queen c7, you got two choices. Either you could be playing rook b5 or rook a6. So go ahead and pause the video, try and think about which one you would choose, and have a response ready depending on what our opponent does from there. Because for these kinds of positions, once you play the move, you sometimes have to follow up with another move. So be able to do that as well too. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started right now for myself. So I like to read through the solution, not the solution, the process a second time, just so I can be able to see it better in my mind. So rook takes on e4, pawn c2. So they're pushing their past pawn. We can't take the queen because they'll promote and back rank checkmate us. So we have to play knight takes on c2, rook takes on c2. We have to play h4. Again, if we play rook takes on e7, we get back rank checkmated, which again, you guys should be aware of right now. So h4, rook c1 check, king h2, and now the queen slides over to c7, um, opposite our rook right there. Now, the one thing I noticed in this position is that our king is opposite their queen, and so I know they say d5 is not a threat due to rook f4, so I guess we shouldn't worry about that discover check right there then. So now we got to decide between rook b5 in that new position or rook a6. Now I gotta remember that our rook on e4 is still there, so that is something to keep in mind, folks, as well. And I think the thing we'll calculate out first, guys, is not rook a6. I think that's a pretty safe move, but I could be wrong. So we gotta first calculate out rook b5. I think is going to be the main move right here. So rook b5. Okay, I see. So basically, we're trying to attack that pawn in two different ways. We're trying to attack the pawn on the file, the A file, versus on the fifth rank. Okay, I mean that makes a lot more sense now. Um, I wonder if our opponent's going to play in that position, queen c6, which attacks the knight, or sorry, not the knight, the rook on. I mean, both those moves I think is going to be a problem for us, which is going to be queen to either b7 if the rook's on a6, or c6 if the rook was on b5, essentially, which attacks the rook and also puts pressure on our rook, which is across from our queen. So the rook's still on e4 and our queen's still on f3. So that's something to keep in mind. Hmm. Yeah, I'm just thinking about this real quick. That's why I paused and actually was like, huh. Rook b5, they can always push their pawn down the board, so it's a little bit safer. I think in this position, and I'm about to run out of time because I gotta go to my next lesson in a little bit. It's all about choosing the move that's going to be the least dangerous for our rook that's on b6 in that current position right there. So I'm gonna pause for a second, just think for a second, guys. Sorry about the silence. I would lean more towards rook a6 because again, it's behind the passed pawn, and it's not that easy for black to get behind that pawn to protect it. I mean, they could play, I guess, in that situation, queen b7, but if they do, that does leave the d6 pawn unprotected as well. So maybe we can afford to take that pawn and reach an equal position versus if we play rook to b5 and they play queen to c6. Well, I mean, we could play because that pawn's not there no more. The pawn on c3. We could play in that situation queen to b3 to protect the rook. Actually, no. If we do, then we hang our rook on e4. So because of rook on e4 be unprotected. So I think in this situation, rook a6 is better. I will spend more time thinking about this, but unfortunately, I gotta like rock and roll, guys, to my next lesson. So let's see if we're right, guys. Boom, boom, boom. Yay! Let's see why though. I mean, it's easy to say that. All right, so let's see the solution real quick. Rook b5, d5 check. They said not to worry about this. They lied. It's true that the rook is not lost due to this move. However, push the visualization a little, and you'll see that this fails to rook c3. I didn't see that move. Queen g4 and then f5. And yeah, this is a problem, guys, right here, unfortunately. If I can draw the arrow. All right, so queen g5 and h6 is played. See, I knew something like that was going to happen, but again, why can we not go? Why is rook a6 better than the other continuation? Real quick, let's see. Analysis board. Let's go. And this might be my last comment, guys. Real quick. Oh my gosh. All right, come on, computer. I can't go back. Dang it. All right, let's go back for a second. All right, analysis board real quick. And sometimes, guys, I'll be honest too. I mean, sometimes you just guess correctly, unfortunately. So if I go in this situation, rook a6, um, it's still -2. So black's still winning in this situation after d5. d5, rook f4, rook c3, g3. Not sure why you can't do that move earlier, but there you go. All right, people. So my lesson has started. So I'll definitely talk more about this, guys, later. Hope you guys enjoy this kind of lesson, and I'll see you guys soon.